One of the hardest lessons that professionals learn is this: hard work alone does not guarantee career growth or success. You can be skilled, dependable, hardworking, and consistent. And guess what? You can still not be promoted, you can still not get a raise, and you can still not be recognized. And that leaves you feeling professionally invisible. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Ariana, aka the Career Queen, and I help high-performing professionals stop playing with their career and start moving strategically. Let's get to the video. So a lot of people focus on performance only, and that is the biggest mistake that you'll ever make in your career. If you are only focused on how you perform and nothing else, then what happens is you feel burnt out. And I did a video on burnt out, so make sure you go back and check it out, because this is the turning point in what happens with a lot of professionals before they actually tap out or they actually disengage or disconnect. So what I want you to realize is that it is not just about your performance. Your performance is important and necessary, but that is not the thing that is going to solidify your career growth. When you think about the workplace, your performance has a good percentage of weight, but how you position it will matter too. So what you should be thinking about is, how is your value perceived? What do people think about the things that you bring to the table? How do you communicate your impact? So if you are excelling at work and on projects and you're doing a great job, but how do you communicate the impact? How do you actually translate what you accomplished into how it's impactful for the company or organization? And then think about how visible your contributions are, because there's nothing like doing work that's invisible, especially if the work helps someone out. So let's say there's a project that your team is working on and it needs to go to a cross-function team, and it only relies on you guys getting it done or you getting your part done. Well, how does your contributions impact, or how visible are they to the next team, right? So if you're constantly operating under the radar, then this is something for you, because you definitely need to get visible. So the reality that everyone needs to hear is that you can be excellent at your job and still be overlooked and undervalued if no one actually understands what you do, or honestly, if you're even there. So a lot of times professionals will show up, they'll do a great job, and then they think that that's enough to be warranted for a promotion or a raise or whatever the case may be. But the reality is if you go into every single staff meeting and you don't say a word and you don't talk about the accomplishments that you made, or you don't talk about the impact, how do you actually expect an employer or supervisor to say, yeah, we'd like to promote you? Right? You're sitting here operating under the radar. So this is your sign. The next time you go into a staff meeting, have some points to talk about. Have some things to actually highlight that you accomplished. We're not talking about being arrogant or egotistical. We're talking about being humble and actually talking about the things that they pay you to do, right? That's another thing that a lot of people forget, is that they are paying you to do these things. And if you don't tell them that you are doing these things, they'll begin to think that you're not. And I know while they might see the work and it comes up at certain moments, but if you don't actually say anything, then they begin to think that you're not really committed or there, right? So I heard this quote. Someone said that silence is satisfaction, and that is so true. If you're silent and you don't ever say anything, they think you're satisfied, right? It's the same thing in life, in a relationship. If you don't say anything, you must be okay. Because if you're not okay, then common sense will tell you that you should be saying something. But I want you to think about this in the career aspect. You should be saying something about raises, promotions, things of that sort, because if you don't, your supervisor will think you are satisfied with it. So before you talk about raises and promotions, you have to get visible, because otherwise, if you do it before you're visible, then it'll be really hard to state your case. So start showing up in meetings and actually contributing, actually speaking up, actually saying things, actually telling them what you're working on and what you're doing, so that when you break the silence and show them that you're not satisfied with your salary and your position, you want to do more, you want an increase, or whatever the case may be. This is important. You must be visible before you do this. The next topic is strategic communication. Strategic professionals don't just say things like, I worked hard. They say things like what they improved, what they solved, and what was the result or impact of the things that they created. And that is the big difference between someone who is strategic and someone who's just going through the motions, or honestly just moving in life, right? So if you are not telling them the impact, the result of things, then you are doing yourself a disservice. Strategic communication is honestly very simple. It is just a switch in what you say and how you say it. So you're not having to think of brand new words. You're not having to elevate your vocabulary, right? You're just taking the words you already know and you're putting it in a strategic position. So that way you're not just saying vague things like I'm working hard, or I worked all night on this, or whatever the case may be, because quite frankly, no one cares how many hours you work on anything because it's not them. But what really matters is what was the overall impact. So if you value the 12 hours you put into this project, then guess what? The way that you communicate it should reflect that. So you don't want to just say that, yeah, I finished it, or I did X, Y, and Z. No, you need to actually go into detail. I connected the blank to the blank and that led to this and that. And now we have this, and that. And this is what we can do with it, right? I know I just said a bunch of stuff, but that is how you need to speak about the things that you did, because you just simply saying I worked all night on this is not going to cut it. I know that that's what you feel, but what do they need to see to make them feel that what you did was phenomenal and great? So lastly, let's touch on workplace politics. And yes, workplace politics are a real thing. I wish they were not, but they are. And a lot of times workplaces have unspoken rules that really can make or break people in the workplace. So if you don't know about these rules, it could really leave you feeling away, isolated, whatever the case may be. But once you know about these rules, what you do next will matter. So for example, relationships matter, right? And we know that just like in politics, a relationship matters. How are you with your boss? How are you with the boss's boss? How are you with the people who make decisions around you? All of those relationships matter, because at the end of the day, everyone's human. And when there's a decision to be made, sometimes the relationship will be thought about before they make that decision. Perception matters. And when you think about it, perception is reality. And a lot of times professionals forget that they're doing what they're doing, but they don't realize what someone is perceiving it as. And while it's not your job to make someone perceive something a certain way, but it is your job to monitor your output that leads to their perception. So at a certain point, this is a 50-50, right? Well, actually it's more like a 60-40, because you have the most pressure of what you put out that will lead to someone's perception. So perception does matter, and perception is reality. Visibility matters. We talked about this earlier. Visibility is one of those things that will honestly make a big difference in your career, whether it be immediate or over time. But if you never get visible, then you'll never really feel fulfilled or satisfied, because you're always going to be operating underneath the subpar. You're always going to be operating in a way that doesn't actually make you feel like you're seen. And chances are managers are not going to promote you. They're not going to give you a raise because you are not visible. And lastly, communication matters. How you communicate. Is it professional? Is it personable? Is it strategic? Is it intentional, right? All of these things matter. Now, while an employer or manager is not sitting here going, you're not communicating strategically, they're not thinking that. But when you communicate, they do hear if there's a strategy, right? If you're telling them what you're doing and how it's helping them, they hear good things, right? That's the strategy that they hear. But if you're also just going, yeah, I worked all night on this, they're like, okay, and you know what that actually tells them is that you are not efficient if you're working all night on something. So I want you to remember that communication matters. Being strategic, being intentional, making sure it's professional, it's personable, and that you are not coming off aggressive or whatever the case may be will matter. So if you struggle with these things, then I think that there's a moment in time where you have to really ask yourself, what am I doing that contributes to this? Because it's not a reality of the external affecting us. It's more about our internal that we use to make it our external, and we have to stop doing that. So I really want you to think about, if you've been overworking and still feeling just stuck professionally, then I have a treat for you. I want you to click the link below in the description. I have a free webinar that I've really put together to help professionals who feel behind, who feel stuck, who feel underqualified. And I provide a framework to help you identify the cause and actually move forward from it. So that way you can continue in your career feeling alive, thriving, and honestly just feeling like you're enough, because sometimes that's all we need. So make sure you click the link below to register to get your spot. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like it, comment below, and subscribe if you haven't done that already, because I would hate for you to miss out on any more content. And I'll catch you on the next one.